thanks for having me. I just wanted to mention a few things, and I'm happy to open it up to questions. First, I think folks probably know there's a lot of really exciting stuff, a lot of investment happening in Noe Valley right now. It's actually pretty amazing how much is going on all at the same time. In addition to the town square, which is of course not changing at the moment, but there's the pending grant application of the state to really try to help us do the physical transformation from a parking lot to a park. We'll be having our second community meeting next week with Deb and company to move forward with the streetscaping and pedestrian improvements on 24th Street, which is very exciting and long overdue. We are moving forward with renovations to Noe Courts after a winding community process, and we will hopefully within a couple months reopen the Upper Douglas Dog Park, which is closed longer than anticipated because of the drainage and irrigation systems were in even worse shape than we had thought they were, which is unfortunately true in a lot of our parks. But so there's a lot of, I think, just great stuff happening in the neighborhood right now. So that's terrific. And hopefully you may have read in the paper that I took a little field trip to Park City, Utah with Carol Yenny and another person who wants to be unidentified to meet with the CEO of Nutraceutical and to encourage them to move forward with plans for real foods. They indicated that the building is completely structurally unsound. It needs to be torn down and rebuilt. They're going to do that. They haven't decided yet if they're going to rebuild it as a one-story retail space or put housing on top of it. But regardless, they do not intend to open one of their own brands in there. They'll rebuild it, and they want to lease it out to another business and be a landlord. And they were asking a lot of questions about what the retail needs are in the neighborhood, what people maybe want and don't want. We were very clear with them, and they got it that we had enough banks on 24th Street.
We definitely need a nail salon.
They know we need a hardware store. So So anyway, again, a lot of exciting things happening. I want to just talk about some of the things that I've been working on at City Hall, and then we'll open up for questions. So I've been, I'm not the only one, fortunately, because it's an all-hands-on-deck situation in terms of our housing crisis in San Francisco, particularly an affordability crisis, and I don't need to tell you how bad it's gotten. And I'm really honestly concerned for what the future is going to look like in this city in terms of who's going to be able to afford to live here. And it's about people being displaced, and we all need to try to reduce the number of evictions and other forms of displacement. But in the long run, even if we're able to keep everyone in place and end all evictions, what is going to happen over the next 10, 20, 30 years, because the city has always been defined in so many ways by the new waves of people who come here, whether it's the Irish and the Italians or the hippies or the gay people or whoever it might be, or the Latinos moving into the Mission. This has always been a city where we've welcomed new waves of people, and it's enriched our city, and it has made us more diverse, and it has given us fresh ways of looking at issues. And I get concerned about whether that's going to be able to continue, and particularly whether young people are going to be able to continue to come here and have a place to live. So it really is something that should be top of the agenda for all of us. I've been working on housing issues since I took office. Did legislation a few years ago to ban universities from buying up rent-controlled buildings and converting them to student dorms. Which one university had been doing that quite a bit. We were able to ban that. Thank you. I have legislation pending to allow the addition of in-law units in the Castro as an initial step to see what that looks like. In-law units are some of the most affordable, probably the most affordable kind of non-subsidized housing, and we've had a very negative policy towards in-law units in the city. The president of the Board of Supervisors, David Chu, has legislation citywide to provide a path for people with illegal in-law units to get them legal. We have tens of thousands of San Franciscans who are living in these illegal units. Those units can be, if someone complains, the city can sometimes force landlords to remove the units and evict the tenants. We want those places to be safe and legal, so people have stable housing. I support that legislation. My legislation goes a little bit beyond and allows for the addition of new in-law units in the greater Castro area, and that is pending at the board. And then yesterday I introduced legislation to try to provide incentives to developers to build their affordable housing, required affordable housing on site instead of paying a fee, and to give them an incentive to build more than the legal minimum of 12%. And what the legislation does is it stipulates that if a developer builds their affordable units on site and builds at least 20% of their units as affordable, so greater than the 12% minimum, if they do those two things, then those affordable units do not count against the unit density limits in the building. So we're saying build more affordable than you're required to do, build it on site, and we won't require you to reduce the market rate units if you do that. So they don't have to make that choice about whether to create affordable or market rate. They can do both, and we can get more affordable housing out of the equation. There's some other things we're working on, but I'll leave it there. Another, I think, huge issue in the city that's going to help determine the future of our city is our transportation network. As our population grows, we've grown by 75,000 in the last decade, which has helped escalate housing prices. It's also put a lot of strain on our transportation network in terms of cars and muni and so forth. We're projected to grow by another 150,000 over the next 25 years. And if we don't plan in terms of transportation for that, we're going to be in a really bad situation. Muni is already overcrowded, especially during rush hour. Our roads are more and more congested. And imagine if we don't invest in improving Muni's reliability and capacity. What's going to happen when all those people are living here? We're going to have even more problems with Muni crowding, and people will end up driving, and we will have many more cars on our roads. So it is in everyone's interest, whether you drive a car, whether you take Muni, whether you ride a bike, whether you're walking, whatever you're doing, it's in everyone's interest to have good investment in our transit system. Over the last year, Mayor Lee convened the Transportation Task Force. I've had the honor of serving on it. We are going to be recommending probably two funding measures for the November ballot to address particularly Muni's capital and maintenance and state of good repair needs. A Muni capital bond, which, we vote on bonds every year. We have a really good capital plan, and the bonds come out regularly for our parks, for our libraries, for our roads, for San Francisco General Hospital, for our police and fire stations, everything except Muni. As far as anyone can remember, there, at least for decades and decades, has not been a bond to deal with Muni's capital needs. Muni has $2.2 billion in deferred capital needs. So that bond will help us with that. We are also proposing a local vehicle license fee, which, thanks to Mark Leno, after many tries, got a bill through the legislature to allow San Francisco to go to the voters and seek voter approval for a local vehicle license fee, which would simply restore our vehicle license fee in San Francisco to what it was before Arnold Schwarzenegger slashed it by 2/3 in 2004, which deprived the state of $8 to $10 billion a year in and year out. So if it passes, the VLF would go back to what it was for all of us in 2003, and that funding would be divided between Muni's state of good repair needs, vehicle rehabilitation and fixing tracks and switches and so forth, as well as providing a sustainable funding source for road resurfacing. We've started to really accelerate our road resurfacing. We're fully funding it now out of the general fund, which is great, but our budgets go up and down, and road resurfacing tends to be one of the first things that gets cut, and we need to have a lockbox for road resurfacing so that we politicians can't put our mitts all over it. It has to go to our roads. And then just a couple other things that I've been working on. We've been doing a lot around streetlights, and recently, about a month ago, we held a follow-up hearing on streetlight reliability. Our streetlight system is, as you know, really old. Huge amount of deferred maintenance on it, and pretty high failure rates. And then once they burn out, once someone calls it in, it takes way too long to get it fixed. And there are way too many times where people go to our office saying, I've tried 3 times to get it fixed, we can't get it fixed. So about a year and a half ago or a year ago, I did a hearing and saw some of these really horrible statistics about how long it was taking to fix these failures. Over the last year, PUC and PG&E, which split the lights, approximately half are owned by PUC, half by PG&E. And they significantly reduced the average response time, but it's not enough. And so I'm working on legislation that will set very clear mandatory standards for streetlight maintenance and response times for fixing the lights, and will also set as city policy a goal of the PUC taking over the entire streetlight system. PUC and I think PG&E has publicly stated, I don't want to speak for them, but they've publicly stated that it does make sense for one provider to run the whole system. And so we would need to purchase those lights from PG&E and then maintain them ourselves. That's what I think, but PG&E says that the California PUC wouldn't let them do that, so so we're trying. And then finally, I am going to be in early February holding a hearing on the massive amount of road work that's happening now in San Francisco, which we all see on the roads every day. And it's a wonderful thing because it is very, very overdue infrastructure work on our streets. We have PG&E that's upgrading its gas lines, which is terrific and important for public safety. And the PUC is gradually replacing our 100-plus-year-old sewer system that should have been replaced a long time ago. And the PUC is also gradually replacing water lines, a lot of which are aging and prone to breaking. So that work is all happening. In addition to the fact that DPW has doubled the number of street units that it's resurfacing per year. So it's all great, it's all critical, it's all overdue, it's all great for the city, but it is so disruptive. Yeah. And I know it's very frustrating for people. Molly has emailed me about this. When you have this disruption, you have situations like we have actually on my street, 17th Street, where for a year and a half, and this is not the only street it's happening on, but it's an extreme situation. For a year and a half, it's one project and then it disappears, and it's sort of gone, but the no parking signs are still there, and the trucks are sort of still there, and then it starts again, and then stops again, and then starts again. And part of the issue is that the city has a rule that once you resurface a street, you put the final touches, for 5 years, no one is allowed to dig on the street except for an emergency. Because it used to be they would resurface, and then 6 months later, PUC would come in and dig for the water lines. And so what they do is when they're going to do work on a street, they put out the grand notice and say, come one, come all. And so they all come, but then the first one goes in and does their work, and then they stop. And then the next one has to then mobilize and put out, because they don't know exactly when their project's going to end. They have to mobilize, they have to put out a bid, they have to go through that. And then maybe it's another month after that before the contractor can mobilize. And it just ends up taking too long. And so the hearing is really going to explore, making sure people know what's happening, what is being done to coordinate, what could be improved in terms of interagency coordination, and also how they can just provide better information to the public. One thing that DPW I know is trying to do, they've not been successful in doing it so far, is to put up an interactive website where you can click on your street and it shows you the projects and the timetable. It's not ready for prime time yet, so so we'll be doing that in February. So with that, I'll.
So, just real quick on that issue,
Yeah.
since I happen to know a little bit about this personally, the person who put together the street planning process, when he ran DPW, is now the mayor.
Yeah.
So you might want to just ask him how he did it, because it was innovative and it worked for a while. And then, as you say, over time, the coordination is sort of broken down.
But I think also, beyond that, I don't know that we've ever seen this level of street work in the city. So it's one of those things where, I know we're never going to get perfect coordination. It's never going to be a situation where you have one project and then the next day the next project starts. And it's unrealistic to expect that, but we're just trying to see if we can make it a little bit less painful.